Thanks everyone for coming here. I know that it's quite a bit of time since I know a couple of you were in the Hacker House in Palo Alto. So we're excited to see everyone here. Before we begin, I'd like to talk about who we are. So people refer us as somewhat ambiguous, somewhat cryptic. They don't really know what exactly we are doing. And I think it's not a mistake. I think we are a group of thinkers. We love to experiment. We love to figure out what we really need to do. And what we mean by it is that if we think about Ethereum or blockchain or Starknet, any of these, we think about a world computer that is massively multiplayer from its deep inside nature, and also its never-ending platform. And it's very much similar to the world that we're living in. If you look at ourselves over here in this world, everyone over here is a player, and we're living in a multiplayer world, and we presume that it will never end. And whenever, if you look at a progression of simulations that were hosted on the devices that we've seen from, arcade machine to your personalized computer to your phone, whenever the medium on which the simulations were hosted evolved into something completely new, we saw very interesting things that could be simulated, and we can enjoy being part of this simulations. So we figured out it's a very exciting time to figure that out, and we are doing lots of experiments to figure out what we really mean by having a stopless multiplayer world computer where we can all live together over there. And without further ado, I'm introducing Nonsense and guiltygyoza to talk more about Shoshin, our latest experiment.
Hello everyone, I'm guiltygyoza. I'll do a short intro on Shoshin before we get to the fun part. How to go next? This? Great. So we founded Topology in 2021. Ever since we founded the company, we've been on a mission to find the Angry Bird moment for fully on-chain games. What we mean by this is we think blockchain is a new medium to create video games, interactive simulations. And whenever there's a new medium, it calls for new design paradigms, new techniques, new patterns that look very much different from the existing paradigms. And so Angry Bird moment is our analogy by saying when mobile phones came out, people wanted to put video games on PC, on console, onto the phone. But ultimately, it's the video games that leverage touchscreen, that leverage the mobility of the device that really shine. So we've done a lot of prehistoric experiments. Since 2021, we started out running physics simulation on Starknet. We started also on running Q-learning agents that can play small games and small neural networks that can perform inference on the MNIST data set and so on. Long story short, we went through Isaac and Mumu to Shoshin, which is a game concept. For those of you who understand 0x Monocle, Shoshin can be understood as a 0x Monocle game but for fighting game, and there's no programming required for the players. Player-created strategies that are put into a 2D box that fight other strategies on a 1v1 basis. As player, after you submit the strategy, hands-off keyboard, you watch the cinema unfolds. Proof of concept, this was June 2022 when we first started the code base. And this was Shoshin.html because in the beginning we rendered everything in HTML. So every graphics, hitboxes, animations was in div tags. We also started out having the Shoshin computer completely exposed to the player. What we mean by this is US player create strategies to play this game. But In the beginning, we exposed the underlying abstractions to the players, which overwhelmed the players. It's finite state machines, it's decision trees, it's crafting the conditions in arithmetic expressions. It was pretty overwhelming for players. And so over a long path of experimentation, we arrived at the current abstraction, which is a layer-based system. So in this diagram, you can see there's an agent that performs different actions based on different conditions. So if you look at the layer 3, if opponent is in gatotsu, which is the female character performing a character special, I will do a dash backward in respond. And so you can have this, you can describe an agent behavior in a linear format, which is much more understandable than finite state machines. And we have pro player switches so that you can customize your behavior a little more. Just one slide on the technical side. Everything is written in Cairo 0 still. Physics employs fixed point arithmetic. First order simulation is the older method. Collision detection and resolution has to be done because it's a fighting game and people and punches collide. Agents is represented in finite state machine. Transition functions between the states are represented by binary expression trees. And animation state, like game industry standards, are represented by finite state machines. Again, everything is still in Cairo 0. So here comes the Paris playtest, and allow me to introduce our lead programmer, designer, and artist, Nonsense.
Hey guys, I'm gonna try walking around the stage a bit, pointing to different things and looking here. But let's now fast forward to July 2023. Where we wanted to do our first public playtest in person. So we had 25 players play the game in Paris. We made some special taunts, and we rented a room for the ECC Paris. Is it? Oh, the play button, of course. So a major piece of feedback we got from people that really took on the game's genre was that they wanted to play against their friends and people online. So what we decided to do is build that. So we created an online mode, sort of a minimal viable feature where players can submit their mind or their strategy and also say who they are. So on the left there you can see that we have several players from across the globe trying the game, making many versions of agents. You can see like the typical like naming conventions of like Photoshop and other things where it's like blank Jessica copy, Zomg2, for example. So people were really continuously playing against each other online, which we really like to see. And so what we decided to do come August 2023, Stanford Blockchain Week, was to run a tournament. We did have one problem though, leading up to that tournament between July and August, was that the fighting the same opponent in the game would result in the same outcome. So let's say you played against a player in an earlier round of the tournament and then played them again. The results would be the same. Doesn't really give a good spectator experience nor player experience. So we introduced a new mechanic called Mixups that allowed an agent to express non-deterministic behavior. What would be below would be a video of Jessica performing a low kick move. And then what Mixups allow you to do by toggling the mix-up is to give a distribution between two different moves, two different actions. So what that allowed us to do is when you play against a player, there's a chance you can perform one move and the fight will just completely diverge in a different direction. In fact, two different minds with a few mix-ups could have one player in a completely dominant position in one instance and then getting defeated in another. So to sort of further expound upon that, in a given fight, we added lives. So you can think of this as best of 3 rounds, sort of that you would see in a Street Fighter or Guilty Gear. And then we decided to define a tournament structure to sort of best serve those two new mechanics. We did a double elimination bracket, so you keep playing in a winner's bracket until you lose, and then in the loser's bracket, if you lose one more time, you're knocked out. Each round of the bracket, a player would submit their mind, and to win a round, your lives decrease your opponent's lives to 0. And then between each round, you can resubmit. So we were trying different game modes where a player would maybe make updates on the fly in the middle of a match, and we found that kind of too stressful even for us who are pretty familiar with the game. So now I'd like to show some of the takeaways from that tournament. The first was that there was really a lot of drama and nail-biting comebacks from the tournament. For example, Beha, who ended up coming in second, would lose his first round almost every single fight, but due to the mix-ups, we never knew what was going to happen. He actually came back several times, and that was like a real surprise for the crowd. It was also the first time us testing it with so many different players. It was also time efficient. We did a 12-man bracket in less than an hour. I know, when you're at a conference or at a hacker house, time seems to be of the element. As you guys know, sitting here, looking at your phones, that we only have attention spans for a short amount of time, and the best way to keep people's attention spans is games are constantly being played, and we can actually get consensus on who's the champion fairly quickly. Also, we had some Underdogs Emerge. We had this one strategy called Defender that basically spammed block, and almost every single mind completely was thwarted by this. We thought, kind of in a disappointing way, that Defender would win the whole tournament, but we had another player be so aggressive that even spamming the most defensive option wasn't enough. Basically, the Defender was too passive, and we were so ecstatic, all the players and the spectators were, for that. Then also, there was some really montage-worthy moments that we're really looking forward to share on Twitter, where certain minds would perform top esport level maneuvers, and it was so cool to see. For example, in grand finals, Jack, the eventual winner of the tournament, dodged the other player's special move with one frame of wiggle room, which we haven't really seen before. It looked really cool to see. And then the spectators and the players seemed to have a really good time. On the left here, we have a mix of players and spectators applauding a victory of another player, and then we had an award ceremony and a trophy. Speaking of trophies, our winner and the runner-up were both very, very happy to participate. They are all-stars or MVPs. We couldn't sell the game any better than through their play. So I know we just talked about games for 15 minutes or so. So what does this mean for StarkNet? So StarkNet allows for more computation on a blockchain, more verifiable computation, and we're trying to find novel and interesting ways to use that computation. So we look forward to continue to experiment and improve the games we're making to reach new audiences for StarkNet. So if you want to play, you can go to shoshin.gg. If you're not a gamer, you can follow us and check out all the montages we'll post. And there's a QR code for shoshin.gg. I'll now open up for questions if anyone has any questions. Yeah, sure, you. Naresh.
Thanks.
Hello.
Super cool. What would you say is the thing that makes it not work in the old paradigm? or are you still searching for that? You mentioned the touch screen and Angry Birds.
I do think we are searching for that. I think one thing that on-chain games need to catch up to is that we may be interested in the financialization of in-game assets as like the main driver, and that certainly may be like one component to it, but we don't think a game has had compelling gameplay and user experience, and I think that should squarely come first. If you're commuting on the train to work, you want to put up your phone and play a game that is entertaining and relaxing. So I think that's what we're focused on primarily. Another thing that interests us is the composability of games on top of each other. We think the modding community has kind of been underserved by AAA game studios for the most part, and I think that sort of energy is going to be served really well in the blockchain space. Any other questions? Okay, I appreciate everyone coming to this talk and everyone that's been wearing the Shoshin t-shirts over Blockchain Week. It's been really cool to see. Thank you.